out. Probably the best working this time. Oh, this is bad. I had some, for anyone watching, I apologize. We're just going to have to try to get through it. It's an unstable connection, not a football, volleyball season finished, getting into soccer and basketball, all those things. We'll talk about all of that, but first, we'll welcome on the interviewee for this episode, Jean-Luc Lepage. Ball game. Well, we're here. So, Hannon, the football game, the first opening quarter, and starting quarter comes out, and he has to take the reins. Jean-Luc here takes the reins in the middle of the second quarter, playing trailing, and then tied, leads us into two different touchdown drives, both critically important for us able to win the game. So, the first thing I want to ask is, when you realize you have to take that mantle as a quarterback for the rest of the game, what was going through your mind?
I just knew that I had to step up and be big for the team. We got a lot of help from the defense. It was a total team effort, and getting that help from the defense grew my confidence, and it helped me come through and give us a win, but it was just a total team effort.
And it's definitely true. I think one thing, defensive effort. This was a defensive, amazing performance. One of the only touchdowns that Hannon scored was based off of one of them was off of a short field from like the 20-yard line. The other one was off of an explosive play. Outside of that, Hannon did not get the ball in the end zone. The defense had an amazing day. But that's not to take anything away from the day that you had. Again, not prepared. Going into it as not the starting quarterback, you have to play starting quarterback, and you come in, and the numbers themselves aren't that crazy, but it is still a very good game with two critical drives. 99 passing yards, about 40 rushing yards, both very, very important stats, and just a great game. So you get that job in the second quarter. You almost punch it in at the very end of that half. And halftime, Coach Lepage gives a moment. He says, Jean-Luc is going to take us to the promised land. Believe that. And everyone in that locker room at that point believed in Coach Lepage. And my guess is you did too. I saw you believed in yourself and you pulled through. So once you got onto that field, you start making the correct reads, you start making the correct decisions, you take off with the ball when you need to. Was there a different feeling once you got on that field as that quarterback versus being on the field as the wide receiver or taking handoff wherever you were before then?
I just had a lot of confidence going in after Coach Lepage gave me that talk at halftime, and I just knew that the whole offense and the offensive line had my back the whole time, and the offensive line gave me time to throw and go through my reads.
Yeah, that is also a very big thing. This ever-improving throughout the season offensive line gave you the chance to make those big decisions. Talk to you at halftime specifically. Was there anything specific in that speech, in that meeting that you had with him that you want to talk about?
He just said to go out and be an athlete like I am, and he said to be confident.
You did. So huge congratulations for that great performance under pressure, going through adversity. No, this is not the Chandler Rhodes we talk about. This Chandler Rhodes was on a couple for Vanderbilt. So this game, you had a great game. I want to talk about a game that maybe doesn't. I didn't have a chance to get you on for the Assumption game 2 weeks ago, but probably the most well-known play from that game is the one that you were the central focus of. 4th and goal in overtime. All I mentioned 2 weeks ago when I talked about this was it was an incomplete pass and a no-call pass interference. But the person who had a chance to catch the ball and didn't largely because of the pass interference was you. So obviously there's a very different perspective being the person on the field as opposed to just watching it from the press box or from the stands. So what did you see during the play? What was going through your head? What did you see while you were running that route?
Well, I think everybody in the stadium knew that it should have been a flag. Once the play happened, I felt the guy pushed me from behind. I looked for the flag, whether nobody threw the flag.
I remember I saw Hunter over there near looking for the flag, Hayes jumping up and down looking for the flag, and you were just, you know, there without the ball and no flag. We can't say, you know, it was, and I guess we can, but it was a missed call. It was, and it sucks. We took I think Coach Lede talked about it on a show that he was on, talking about he filed with the LHSAA. They said it was they formally said it was a missed call, which I think is very important to talk about, because if we get the call, it's more than likely a victory. We were that close to the next years, maybe fuel you to have a chance to win that district championship in these next couple of years.
Yes, it does. I think we're going to have a lot of motivation pushing forward, and we turned the ball over a lot of times that game, so that was key. And then limit all those turnovers.
Mhm.
I think we have a really good chance of winning district next year.
Yeah, I mean, give me 1 second. I apologize. So, yeah, that game, despite the fact that Assumption we got it to overtime and we were that close to beating them and to beat Assumption and to win those ever important games. But the thing is, Assumption's a great team, but we played with them for 4 quarters and into overtime. An interesting statistic, and segue this into my final question for you, but an interesting statistic, Assumption is 55th in the state right now. University High throw a caliber team. We can, despite what everyone might say, despite what the outside world thinks of U High's favored in this, we don't have a chance. We have a very legitimate chance in this game. As a player, as whatever position you end up playing next week, wide receiver, quarterback, running back, whatever. What do you agree?
To have a good week of practice, to take it day by day, and maintain our focus towards the game.
Mm-hmm.
Watch a lot of film on them, and overall just maintain our focus.
Definitely, focus is going to be incredibly important. No matter what game plan is, no matter what we're running, we have to focus in order to win this game and have a chance to make a deep run. So, however we may do that, and whatever chance we have, I think you're going to be very integral in that. So, thank you for coming on, Jean-Luc.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So, I'm going to do a little bit of moving around here. Again, one last thanks to Jean-Luc for coming on. I apologize. It looks like there might still be a little bit of an unstable connection, but we have 9 people on, so I think we are at least connected enough. I hope so, at the very least. This, I think, is fine. Okay, so I think we are good. See that he had to go through. So, Hannon, as a game as a whole, because Jean-Luc's performance was great, but there is still a lot more to talk about with the game than just the one player. Because with a score of 21-14, there are a lot of things going on more than just one offensive performance from one quarterback. Because Jean-Luc had a great game. He wasn't responsible for a touchdown, and that's for a few reasons. Mostly because of how successful we were on the ground. The first drive of the game, led down the field, big 3rd down conversion, and from Gavin Nagel, a run from him, 3rd down conversion, leads to Caleb Calhoun driving in for a touchdown. And we started the game with the ball, and that is huge, a huge spark. It's something about all the story going into the game. There is a story. 2 years ago, we played them. We didn't have that spark on offense at the beginning, and we ended up losing 35-20. This game could have been very similar. It was freezing cold. We have an offense that, while very talented, hasn't been great on first drives historically throughout the season. And if we don't get that spark, that initial burst of points, even though Austin Lede does end up missing the extra point at the end of that first drive, this game could have been very different. Hannon had been talking a lot of smack throughout the week, saying that we didn't have a chance, looking ahead to U High the next week. A lot of people weren't giving us a great chance because of the seeding. It was a road playoff game, the history, and we went in the first drive, we received the ball, and we threw the first punch. And that is so important. Even if we lose the momentum early on after that, and we do, I'll talk about that in just a second. I hinted to it just a few minutes ago, but that we are here. That we are here to compete and to win this game and to play U High next week. So that is what we did. We scored, we missed the extra point, but we're up 6-0. Our defense has a great stop after a small chunk play, but gets a good stop. We get the ball back deep in our own territory, and we get a fumble. Him has a short field. They drive down and score a touchdown. They hit their extra points, and we're at 7-6. The score stays like that for the rest of the half. Second quarter, John Luke leads a drive that looks like it might score points, but at the very end, he gets tackled about 15 yards toward the end zone. If we had like one more play, a few more seconds on the clock runs out. If we had a few more seconds on the clock, we would have had a chance maybe to punch it into the end zone. Unfortunately, we did not have that chance. Unfortunately, we came up just short of potentially taking the lead at the end of the half. So we go into the half down 7-6 with a quarterback that was not prepared to lead the way going into the second half. And the halftime speech from Coach Leday and Coach James and Coach Babin was phenomenal. That feeling in the locker room was a feeling of complete and total confidence. It was a feeling of John Luke, I said it before when John Luke was here, John Luke will lead us to the promised land. John Luke will lead us to a victory, to a playoff victory, the first one in 4 years for this Vanderbilt football team. And what happens in the second half? Defense gets a stop, although Hannon looked to be figuring a few things out in offensively speaking on our defense. Almost had a big play, leads to them having to punt. We get the ball back, and John Luke leads us on a huge drive, making the right decisions because of the offensive line, because of the wide receivers, making all the right decisions, making all the right reads, able to drive down the field and score a touchdown. A touchdown made by Hunter Porsche. Go up 14-6. U High deep early on in the fourth quarter scores a touchdown off of a big play and is able to tie the game up 14-all. So now again, with an offense that has not been that in the regulation or in overtime, we have to put up points if we want to win the game. Get within 3 minutes, and we start giving them 25 yards. And with 3 minutes left, and an offense and a team that is looking for our first playoff win in 4 years, the push from the offense was unprecedented. It was amazing. In it, Terriers go up 21-14. Hunter Porsche finishes this game with about 50 yards receiving, 30 yards rushing, and about 20 yards in punt and kick. Greatest for the season. But every single one of those yards, every single one of the feet that he ran, every single step that he took, it was every single time he touched the ball. And it was an amazing performance from him. I cannot speak enough about how great his performance was. John Luke's performance in the situation that he was in was great, but so was Hunter's. And the other part it was an entire team performance, but the other performance that was great was from our defense, and especially our front seven. Nothing against the back four, nothing against the defensive backs, but the front seven guarding those runs was great. We end up, again, Hannon starting to get drives. In the third quarter, their first drive, they almost break off a big play. They do break off one, almost break off a second off of a drop, have to punt the ball away. On their second drive, it is a run and a run and a run, and they just keep pummeling the ball down our throats. And it's starting to get concerning. They have something figured out against our defense, which is something we haven't seen. Our defense hadn't given up a second half points. 3 teams out in the second half. Excuse me, we gave up 3 points to South Lafourche in the second half. Not giving up a touchdown in the second half. But Hannon starts driving the ball, and they're on 3rd and goal to go. And they throw their first pass of the drive, and it gets intercepted in the red zone by Chandler Rhodes. We get the ball back, run a little bit more time off the clock. They get the ball, and then they score on the first play of the fourth quarter, like I said earlier. But they had obviously figured out something at this point. So with 2.5 minutes left, when Hunter Porsche drove it into the end zone for us to take the lead 21-14, I was ecstatic. I was excited. Even with their offense being primarily a run offense, they had gotten off big plays through the air and even through the ground at this point. 2.5 minutes is enough time. They can drive down, score a touchdown, and force overtime. It was definitely plausible at this point with that offense. And what happens? With about a minute left to go in the game, they break off one of those big pass plays. There's a blown coverage, a mistake, Landon Rodgers. And what happens? With about a minute left to go in the game, they break off one of those big pass plays. There's a blown coverage, a mistake, Landon Rodgers makes the tackle, and it's out of timeouts. We win the game 21-14. Like I said, our first playoff win since the seniors of this year were in a playoff win in 4 years for this Vanderbilt team and for this Vanderbilt program. I apologize. I will look at the comments. I think that does happen. I will try to reply to them in the comment section later tonight or as soon as I can. So, a little bit about the stats, because I think it's really important to look at that, because as much as a comparison, I think is worth looking at. You don't see the two teams running the same number of plays. That's just not how football usually works. That means these teams were identical, especially when you look at the total yardage. We had 285 total yards. They had 294. We averaged pretty much identical numbers. When they got down the field, they ran out of time, and they couldn't put the ball in the end zone. With throughout the season, something we had problems with. We did it, we finished drives, and we won the game. And that is huge. No matter what happens the rest of the season in these next 3 weeks, this win will be the main event. It will be the final. There's a lot to talk about, even outside of the football game, that is worth bringing up. Quarterfinals match against St. Scholastica, a very good game, all 4 sets. We came up flat a little bit in the first set, something we had done all season. Despite the fact that this still is an elite program, we might have finished the first set of every game this season for a great team. We get off to really, really bad starts. We ended up winning, I think it was the second. 2 of them went into extra points, basically. St. Scholastica winning with 25, 26, 27, 28 instead of the normal 25. So despite the fact that we did come up short, it was still an incredible game for the Vanderbilt volleyball team and still a great season. Even if we didn't have the season finish the way we did, even if we had some games not go the way program, that is going to be great from in years to come. So congratulations to all of the players for the volleyball team for a great season, even if it wasn't what they wanted. They started with a close loss to Terrebonne, which is something I feel like I've said every year, because Vanderbilt hosted not just our game, but the entire Jamboree, all 3 games, starting with Central Catholic versus Terrebonne. This was a very good game, very low scoring, 27-25. Obviously, it's more like a half of basketball than a full game, but 27-25, Terrebonne does end up on top. They get an interesting charge call at the end. They hadn't been getting charges all game on defense, block after block after block. They end up at the very end as Central Catholic trying to get a tie, get into a lead potentially for the game. They finally draw that charge, and Terrebonne ends up winning. Our game, we end up taking on South Terrebonne in the second game of the triple header. One thing interesting about early basketball season is that not only are the teams kind of sloppy because it is early November or mid-November, and they're just not in HL Bourgeois, it was an interesting game to see at Vanderbilt because these 2 teams have athleticism out the wazoo. They have spectator. It was a very crowded game. Eleanor travels very well to these sort of games. HL does too. And it was kind of a treat to watch back and forth in the end of the first half. And HL Bourgeois comes up with the win. Now, Islander had a state championship a few years ago, so I see this as a bit of an upset, but HL program is still very good. But either way, a great win, even if it is in the Jamboree, for HL Bourgeois. So congratulations to them. Moving on, soccer. We just started the seasons. I think they had their Jamboree last week, and both teams dominated like you would expect they would. Just normal Vanderbilt soccer things. And want to talk a little bit about the preseason rankings and the outlooks for both of these teams. The boys are sixth in the preseason rankings.
Things are frozen up on the screen, it looks like.
That doesn't surprise me. The live stream is a little bit down to one person, yeah.
Is it, does it give you any indication that it's, there's a problem with the...
It said it was unstable.
Okay, I don't know what you want to do. Mom says it's still locked up.
I apologize for any of these technical difficulties, and I'll go ahead and go. See you.